Hey, good evening. Welcome to Jackie and Company. Tonight's a very special show to me for a lot of reasons. Number one, my two guests are, I guess you'd say, family, because Samantha Bennington and Draven Bennington are my surrogate daughter and grandson, have been part of my life forever, as I've been part of theirs. Actually, literally your whole life, Samantha, since you were born. And Sam is the ex wife of the late Chester Bennington from Linkin Park, and Draven is his son. And we're here to talk sex, drugs, rock and roll, and every other subject related to that. Sam has a book coming out that I think is going to be a real bestseller and very interesting. And it's called Falling Love Notes. And it's about your life and the challenges that you've been through and how you feel your experiences can help other people. And I think that's the beauty of it is that it's not just a way of you getting things out of your heart and soul, but helping others that have gone through some of the same things, adoption, um, death, illnesses, things like that. So let's start out at the very beginning. You were actually born here in Detroit. Tell us a little bit about what you remember about that.
Well, I don't remember being born,
Well, I would not think so.
but I do know the stories, and I was adopted at birth, as you know, and I was so blessed that you were one of the first people to take me out of my mother's arms. And I was adopted to a very nice family that was very close friends of your family.
Exactly. I
And
actually wanted you. This is a true story. I had two sons, was wanting a daughter, and we heard through family of someone that was having a child and had to give it up for adoption. It was a little girl, and I wanted her so bad. But another relative in California didn't have any children and wanted a child, so it would have been pretty stupid of me to take one when I had two healthy kids. So she went to this, close relative, and even though she was raised in California, she's always been back and forth to Detroit. There's a little Motor City in her soul,
a lot of soul.
a lot of Motor City in her soul.
Yeah, so born right out of the hospital, raised in California, and being adopted, always had that urge to find my biological family. So,
Well, let's skip that for a minute and come back to that
okay.
because I want to talk about what was it like growing up in Pacific Palisades, which is a very exclusive part of LA. A lot of movie stars, a lot of famous people. Was it fun growing up there, going to elementary school there and making friends with all these kids whose parents were in the industry?
It was, but I didn't really realize that they were in the industry. So my neighbors were Ronald Reagan, Chevy Chase. Um, my next door neighbor had a recording studio in his home, so that was the very first time I was in a music recording studio. I was 7, so I didn't know any different. I just thought these are people's jobs, and that's what they do for a living. And they come home to their families, and I think it became very advantageous for me as I got older and stayed in the industry, which I never knew I was going to follow in those footsteps.
Of course not. We never know at 7 what we're going to end up doing, but I think it was fortuitous that you had music around you at such a young age that maybe that helped your appreciation of it so that when the opportunity came along, it was an industry you were comfortable with.
It absolutely had to help, even when I didn't know it.
Yep, it was inbred in you. But growing up in Pacific Palisades, I'm sure is a lot different than if you had stayed here and been raised in the east side of Detroit, which is where your
Born.
biological parents were.
Yeah.
So you had a charmed life up until you were.
Well, it seems really glamorous when you look at it from the outside, and we talk about it in this way. It's Pacific Palisades Highlands. I had very wealthy friends and very laid back attitudes. Most of them surfers and um, high education, great parents. And then I had a very unique family life that took a turn. So, this wonderful high end life, I guess a lot of my friends kind of thought I was very upper scale, but behind the scenes, I
Well, the
we
money didn't matter when it came down to
right.
what you were dealing with. And tell our listeners and our viewers what happened when you were 7 years old, because that was a shock even to me when I heard about it. It was a shock to all of us.
Well, my father was a fashion manufacturer and designer. He's retired now, and he was away out of town. And my adopted mother She had an aneurysm, a brain aneurysm at 7, and
No, she wasn't 7. You were
I
7.
was 7.
She was
What
30.
she Yes, yes, sorry. And I woke up. She didn't wake me up for school, so I woke up to say, "Hey, Mom, wake me up. I got to go to school." And she was actually in the middle of the aneurysm. I found her in the middle of an aneurysm, and we didn't have 911. And if anyone knows California or the Pacific Palisades Highlands, there's only one lane in at that time and one lane out. I think now there's 4
Yeah,
in and out.
but you were way up there too, so getting somebody to come must have taken some time.
It took a lot of time, and
As a little 7-year-old, it must have seemed like forever till help came.
well, thank God the phone rang, and my dad, he called from San Francisco, and I told him Mom won't wake up, and he said, "Okay, run to the neighbors, and I'll call back in 5 minutes." I went to 3 neighbors' houses. Everyone was gone for work. Nobody was home. So when I came back, he had said, "Don't worry, help's on the way." And then what seemed to be hours later, which was probably, I don't know, half an hour
Half an hour, right.
45 minutes later, the fire department, paramedics, everyone was there. And then even his business partner had showed up. Actually, 2 of his business partners and one of the business partner's girlfriend at the time did show up as well. But then everyone left.
Oh, after they took her to the hospital?
They put her on a gurney, they covered her up with a sheet, and
And your life changed forever that day.
I was left alone. All the good guys left. The policemen, the fire department, paramedics,
Where were you?
in the house.
But who stayed there with you?
No one.
They left a 7-year-old alone and they all ran to the hospital.
Hmm.
Wow.
They all forgot.
that there was a child at home.
And a kitty cat. My fur baby.
Well, at least you had that. And she was in the hospital for quite a long time, 6 months or so, right?
She was in a coma for 6 months at one point.
That's got to
And-
have been a very difficult thing for a 7-year-old child to understand why her mother just suddenly was gone.
I couldn't wrap my head around it. And I think back then, this was 78, if I'm correct, and I'm aging myself, but that's okay. They didn't allow children to go into the ICU. So I didn't get to see my mom, and I didn't know really what was going on. So my neighbors with the recording studio had me come in, and I got to make her a tape.
Oh, I remember that.
Remember that tape? I still
Yes.
have it.
Oh, that really made a difference. Tell what happened. This is an amazing story.
So what was amazing about this tape was who knew I just wanted to say hi, Mommy. Actually, I kind of didn't really even know if I wanted to do it because I was so young and scared, and I didn't know what to say. So I said, generic things what a child would say is, "I'm doing good in school, and this is what happened, and I hope you're okay, and I miss you, Mom," and those type of, things that a 7-year-old would say to their parent. And later on, when they announced her flatlined, her mother said, "No, my daughter's not going to die. Play my granddaughter's tape. Play my granddaughter's tape," since I couldn't go see her in the ICU. And so they indulged her, of course, as a grieving mother, and they played my tape, and that's how they discovered coma patients could hear.
Because she woke up.
She heard my voice and woke up, and that's what changed medical history.
Isn't that something? Well, they do say that no matter what, your hearing is the last sense to go. I think that's been proven over and over, that a dying person may not see you, may not be able to communicate, but they can still hear you. So you saved your mother's life, your adopted mother's life, basically.
I did. I just, I'm not sure if I did, you want to do the right thing, but sometimes when people are so hurt or so ill, I did save her life, and I'm very grateful for that. I just hope she's living a quality life like we live, and I'm always concerned over that for her.
Well, for sure, because she's never really bounced back 100% from that stroke. She
Right.
never really had a normal life after that. Neither did you,
No.
because her inability to take care of you after that, because she was paralyzed on her left side, and it affected so much of her, that you went to live with your father,
Correct.
who at that time had remarried, and now you had a stepmother.
That's so much fun, isn't it?
Well, I had one, and so I can actually say mine wasn't that much fun because my dad remarried after my parents were divorced, and I didn't get a really good one.
Yeah, I don't really use the phrase stepmother very often. I use a different phrase. I don't know if that's okay to say.
Yeah, you can say it. You can say anything on the internet.
Well, and I apologize to my brothers or family that's listening, but for me, it was my adopted mom through her aneurysm. They say when people have an aneurysm or a stroke, they either go slapstick silly or they become angry mad. So she became angry, bitter, mad. So I had that. And then I had a step monster who was very jealous, and my father and I were very close. So then I had these two kind of crazy cuckoo mothers. And thank God for you, because I'd always fly back to you, and you taught me everything and anything good in me. I always credit you for my
Oh, that's so
business,
sweet. Well, you
my
became the
love.
daughter. I didn't get to raise you
But
all
you
the
did.
time, but I kind of did.
You really
So
did.
it worked out pretty good. But step parents can be tough. You know, I had a stepmother who now later on in life, there's no hard feelings. We're friendly, but oftentimes a stepmother is very jealous and resentful of the relationship between her husband and his child from a previous marriage because that's a link to the past and they want to break that link.
Right.
And you represent the other mother, the other wife. So I know for me, we were estranged for, several years. And it wasn't until I got married myself and was pregnant with a child that we reconciled.
Yeah, we tried to reconcile, but it took me becoming married and my ex-husband's name, because we were married for many years before we were even accepted for my.
Isn't that interesting, though? Once your husband became a famous rock star and there was lots of money, they kind of found you again, didn't they?
Yeah, it's funny how people come out in the woodworks when there's something to attach to.
Well, when there's something to be gained.
Gained, yes, because I'm the only daughter, whether I'm adopted or not, and I'm also, I have the only grandchild, let alone grandson, and but we're still a little bit estranged. I remain hopeful.
Well, that's always a good feeling to think that maybe somewhere down the line you'll all come back together. But in the meantime, you do have two half brothers, and
They're wonderful.
and that worked out great for you because after they adopted you, they adopted another child, a boy, and then
Alex,
coincidentally or ironically or amazingly, however you want to put it, they were able to
scientifically,
have their own child for
and
their third child.
and who is my closest. I do love my brothers very much, and they're great uncles.
And
They're
that's
just
wonderful. So you do have that. So out of what wasn't a great relationship, you gained two brothers.
And then I also have two brothers who've actually been raised my cousins, but they're your sons.
Oh, right. That's right. My boys are, kind of like brothers to you. So we all grew up with that kind of a loving, caring thing. So when you came to Michigan, you always had a safe place to come.
And I came often, huh?
Right, because it was your safe haven away from everything else. A sick mother, a stepmother that you didn't like.
I do want to credit the mothers that I don't call mom. So there's a distinct difference because I call you mom and Draven calls you grandma. But I'm going to credit those two mothers because of their lack of ability to love or have compassion towards me, taught me in my fight or flight mode how to become an amazing mother. And I might be a lot of things, and people might know me in so many different personality aspects, whether it's business or life coaching or a mother or a friend or a sister, daughter. They may have different opinions on me, but one thing I think will stand strong and consistent is that I'm an amazing mother.
Yes, you certainly are. Draven, do you agree to that?
Yeah.
I mean, she's there for you 110%.
No, yeah, she's always there for me.
Yeah, you guys are kind of sometimes I think you're like brother and sister more than mother and son because you do everything together. You travel all over the world. We're going to get back to that in a minute, but I wanted you to say what you learned from being abandoned at birth, then being abandoned through sickness from your adopted mother, and then being abandoned in a way by a stepmother